Alright, welcome back. It's been a while for me. I've been busy working on a few other things, and I haven't had time to get back and do this video. But today we're going to go over creating Gerber files, and I'm going to use this board that we've created. We're working on another project. This is a controller for somebody else, and it's just a good example, I guess. So I'm going to come up here to File. Once your board's done, you want to create the Gerber files. That's what you need to send off to the board houses to have your board manufactured. Go to File, go to CAM Processor, and it'll bring up this window, except this will actually be blank. And this is what you'll see. So in Eagle, it has sections. Each one is represented by a tab. Right now we only have one section. And as many sections as you want create a job. And so in Gerber files, there are multiple files. There's your copper files, your silkscreen files, your solder mask files, your drill file, and so you need to create a file for each one of those. And an easy way to do that in Eagle is by using a section for each one. So we're going to call this section the component section, and this naming comes from kind of just a naming convention that's continued on from back in the day when boards had components on one side, they were soldered on the other. So your component side is your top side of your board, and your layer or your solder layer is your back side of your board. So we'll call this one component, and to make it as generic as possible, give you the file name first. You can go into Eagle's help and look up these variables to have dynamic file names. But I'm going to say %p, that gives you the path of your board file. Put in a slash and go to a subdirectory called Gerbers. You need to create that. Eagle won't create it for you. Then we go %n, that'll give you the name of your file without the .brd on it. And then say .cmp for component. And for device, the board houses that I've dealt with and that I've looked up all use Gerber RS-274X style files. So there's that. We're going to come up here to Layer, deselect all, and for this component side we want the top, we want the pads, and we want the vias. And that's what our top copper layer consists of. So we're going to go ahead and say Add. It's going to bring up another tab. It's just going to duplicate whatever you had there. We're going to call this one Solder. Same device, just that the file extension for this one is .sol. And as to the top, we have the bottom. Now the pads and vias stay in both because the copper for the pads and the vias needs to be on both the top and the bottom layers. So we click on Add, go to the next one. This one we're going to do our silk screen. So I'm going to call it Top Silk, or we could say Component Silk to go ahead and stay with the naming convention. And we're going to call this one .plc. For this one though, we're going to go with dimension, tplace, and tnames. And one thing about the names is they all need to be in vector fonts. If you have any of the other style of fonts, then it'll convert them to vector, and sometimes they'll stretch them out or skew them, and it'll end up looking a little funny. So if you just make sure all your fonts are in vectors, then you'll be okay. We're going to go to the next one. We're going to call this the Solder Silk, and it's called PLS. And instead of tplace and tname, we still want dimension, we just want bplace and bnames. So go ahead and say Add. And next we're going to go to our stop masks. So we're going to call this component stop. And now we don't want any of these, we just want t-stop. And this one is actually stc for component stop. Go to our solder stop. And again, these layers create the stop masks, your solder masks. Make it easier to solder. We're going to take b-stop on this one. And finally, for 2-layer boards, this is really all you need. It's your drill files. And for this, you actually need to select Exelon as your device. Some places use a binary format of some sort. It's a little old, and so you probably won't run into that, but just to be aware of that you need to make sure that you're using the correct devices. And I call this NCD for NC drill file. For this, we just want the drills and the holes. And there you go. So you can come up here and you can say File, Save Job, call it generic or standard or whatever you want to call it. Apparently I already made that one. And now you can come in and any board that you create, you can just load this job back up, create the Gerbers directory in whatever directory you're using, and just come down here and click Process Job. I already created the Gerbers directory ahead of time, so there we go. Now it's created our Gerber files. So then what we do is you want to have a Gerber Viewer, and this is made even more important by 5.1. If you didn't notice all the pop-ups that would pop up in 5.1, there were some problems with the CAM processor, and we noticed that in this board in particular, or one of its revisions. So if we go to where we save the files, come down here to Eagle, Fire Pit, Gerbers, select them all. It'll know which ones it cares about. Hit open, and it'll give you your Gerber files the way that the board house is going to see them. So in 5.1 we had this kind of funny looking arc over here, not what we wanted in the board for sure, but the board house would have gone ahead and routed it just like the Gerber file said, because they don't know what your design is supposed to be. So you need to check these once you've created them, and this Gerber Viewer is pretty handy. There's a link on the website for it, so if you go to www.ece101.com you'll see it. And there's also a couple other links that I'll probably throw up, good resources. But if you come in here, you can look at how your Gerber files actually turned out and what the board house will see. So if we just want to look at the copper traces, then we go ahead and deselect the silk screen, deselect the solder masks and the drills, and this is the copper you're going to get. So we're going to have this plane over here, we're going to have all these traces running all over the place. If you just want to look at your silk screen, come over here to your PLC and PLS. There's really not much on the backside. The backside just has that little circle and the dimensions to the board, and that's really it. So you zip all these files up, send them off to your board house, and they'd go ahead and fabricate your board based on these files. Just something to notice, this C2, the 2 is going to get cut in half when they go to put the silk screen down. You might not even get the 2 at all, you might just get the C. Just because it depends on how close to the edge they can get. Not all board houses will go clear to the edge. So that's about it. If you have any questions, go ahead and go to www.ece101.com, leave a comment on this post, or email me, chris@ece101.com, and let me know if you have any questions for further topics. In the future I'm going to be going over a few things that I've touched on in previous posts, but that deserve a little bit more attention and a little bit more time on explaining them and really understanding what's going on there. So thanks again.